Ladies and gentlemen, hello. Could I have your attention briefly? Thank you. I hope you've all enjoyed a convivial lunch. There was certainly a great buzz of conversation in the room, so I'm assuming that's the case. Best lunch we've had today. Good. Okay, that's funny. Yes, there you are, Lucy. We've got a comic in the audience. Delighted to welcome, in a minute, Lucy Lumsden to come to the podium and talk to us. Lucy is the head of comedy at Sky Television, and previously from that was at the BBC. She is, of course, a graduate of Edinburgh. That's why we've asked her to come here today, in the history of art. Interesting, when you look at her bio, her chief memory of Edinburgh, she says, was the cold. And she needed a new boyfriend each year to make sure that she could stay warm. He was clearly the form of central heating, is what it sounded like. Her other great memory of Edinburgh, and clearly had a major effect on what she's done subsequently, was the Fringe. And of course, Edinburgh University has always been a very strong supporter of the Edinburgh Fringe. Tim chairs the Fringe board now, and we're in the thick of it. So it's great that somebody is really turned on by that wonderful time of year and organisation to do things and then to play a leading role in the cultural life of the country subsequently. So after graduation, Lucy headed for an organisation called the Comic Strip and worked on a number of things there before joining the BBC in 1998. There she commissioned and developed a fantastic range as the head of comedy commissioning at the BBC, with shows that you will know, like Gavin and Stacey, Outnumbered, Catherine Tate, and the sublime, for me, Miranda. So after 9 years, having learnt her trade, as it were, and all of that, Lucy moved to Sky Comedy. She's delivered there, again, a string of terrific hits, so she's clearly a very talented young woman. And some of those I'll read out to you include things like Trolleyed, The Young Doctor's Diary, Alan Partridge, and Stella. And one of her great successes a couple of years ago was a series called Little Crackers, which was a series of 12 short plays, one for each day of Christmas, came out Christmas 2010, in which she got Victoria Wood, Dawn French, Stephen Fry, and other people to do these delightful autobiographical pieces. I thought that was a very, very clever piece of work to have done and delivered. The list of programs she has commissioned and the talent she has developed for comedy in the United Kingdom, it just goes on and on and on. Since 1998, I don't think anybody else has, that I've read about has had such a positive and popular effect with writers, actors, and the viewing public in this particular sphere of comedy as Lucy Lumsden. Lucy, we're delighted to hear from you. Thank you so much.
Hi. Gosh, that was such an introduction. Can I put that there? Thank you so much. That's so many nice words said about me. Happy Valentine's Day. This is a major double dating room I'm in front of me. In a way, today's my little love letter to Edinburgh University. And I was just thinking, oh gosh, it's 24 years since I was here, so that's made me feel a bit old today. But I've been reflecting a lot on my time, and actually the first time I came here was to be in a play at the Fringe. And I was Harlequin in a musical about Goldoni, and we were on at the Pleasance, which was just Pleasance 1 and Pleasance 2. Remember those days? Not that anymore. It's a very exciting moment when Rowan Atkinson came to our show, and he sat in the front row, and he stayed for about 6 minutes before walking out. But we didn't care. It was probably a bit rubbish, but my first Edinburgh Fringe was an amazing experience. But that summer I was waiting for my results. I didn't actually know if I was going to come to this university, so I was just an imposter. I didn't know if it would be my home for the next 4 years. I remember the pong of the brewery. That smell never leaves you. I remember the cobbles and the dark granite buildings, the breathtaking view from George's Street down to the Firth of Forth. We can never get tired of that. And despite that wind howling up the Royal Mile, I thought, I love it here, and I hope I get in, and I did. I loved my degree. I did history of art. Yes, it was the Sloaney degree, full of people talking about their gup yars and drinking gin and tonics in the Par Tree. Do they all do that still? Is it still there? It was very very posh, but the subject was great. But my heart really belonged to the Bedlam Theatre. And the reason why I loved the Bedlam Theatre was that it felt a place where we could just be ourselves. All the differences between us, whether you're English or Scottish or posh or normal, it didn't seem to matter. It was fantastic that we felt it was down to us to successfully run the theatre. If we screwed up, it really, really mattered, and that's a good lesson in life. And there was a healthy mutual admiration for fish suppers and lager, no gin and tonics, hard work, late nights, painting those Bedlam toilets. Oh, yes. It was exciting, and I made firm friends. And I just didn't really appreciate it, probably at the time. University life gave us so much. I felt that converted church with those bright red doors could have been the center of the universe, total freedom, creating all the time. And I felt member of the best band in the world, inspired by those people around me. There was nothing to lose. Yes, we took ourselves far too seriously, don't we all at university? But actually, I remember a committee meeting where we spent the whole meeting deciding whether we could smoke in the committee meeting, and the smokers won. There was lots of talent around us. We had Greg Wise, Angus McFadden, Ali White. We had directors like Connell Morrison, Toby Goff, who've gone on to do fantastic things. We had Mitch Benn strumming away in the background, practicing those comedy songs, and a certain Jenny Colgan, who was writing away, observing us. And I think we might have ended up in one of her famous books. We didn't really care about success or failure or money. It was all about being together and having fun. But we were very serious about trying new things. And in a pre-internet world, pre-Twitter obsession, our only obsession was to produce plays to the best of our ability and not make fools of ourselves come opening night. We were given incredible opportunities, like taking Oh, What a Lovely War to Heidelberg to frighten the Germans. Actually, I remember almost being arrested, coming back from Heidelberg with our prop rifles, and they thought they were the real thing. And we got stuck there for quite some time. It's quite frightening. And Donald Mayne's play, The Dutiful Easy, which we took to the Tron in Glasgow, I actually still have no idea what that play was about, even though I was going out with the writer, but I thought it was really uncool to ask him. Then we had Colin Tevan, who's gone on to be a very successful playwright. He managed to persuade Guinness to sponsor a 24-hour reading of Ulysses, and Guinness supplied us with 4 kegs of Guinness that sat on the stage throughout the entire 24-hour performance for the audience and the cast to help themselves to. And I had the 4:30 a.m. shift, being Molly Bloom, and it was really tough. It was probably the toughest gig I've ever done. Everyone was drunk. Thank you, Edinburgh University, for trusting us to keep that theatre alive. I'm sure that spirit continues today, and it's great to see some 24 years later it's going from strength to strength. I saw that Improverts is still going on, and we started that off when I was there, and it was called Theatre Sports. But of course, the Bedlam wasn't just a venue during term time, but during that ever-expanding fringe. And that was where I found my comedy roots. So my role of head of comedy at Sky has been to find scripted comedies for you, the great viewing pleasure of the British public. Think of me as a comedy midwife, delivering you laughter opportunities. And despite some egos and some occasional misfires and a script pile that I never have got to the bottom of, it's been a blast. And I've been so lucky to be involved with some of the great shows. Gavin and Stacey, The Trip, The Thick of It, Miranda, Stella, Outnumbered. I've loved how comedy can take you to a different place from where you thought you were heading. It makes us think. It makes us fear the world a little less. What was funny one year isn't funny the next. It's such a weird but interesting barometer on society. And I just don't seem to tire of it, thank God. I love television as a medium, And at its best, it unites us on the sofa and unites us as a nation. And doesn't it feel so much better to laugh together? I heard this phrase the other day, that great entertainment should control the breathing of the audience. And I love that. When we arrive at something new, our brains are fizzing, we have so many different frequencies going on, and a great story comes along and we chime together. Check yourself when you next go to the cinema and see a great film. That entire auditorium at some points will breathe as one. And I guess that's what we were all practicing at the Bedlam Theatre. So I won't go through my whole career. I'll pick out a couple of key moments, lucky breaks. So I left university in July 1991. Like most of my friends, totally clueless about what we were going to do next. You would have thought after 4 years we had a plan. None of us did. I think we were debating whether to get proper jobs, and we'd been practicing this strange world in the Bedlam and thinking it was highly improbable to actually get a proper job in that world. I also left with a very nasty shock. My mother died very suddenly just as I graduated. So that already strange time of being at a crossroads in life was suddenly an utter void. My compass was spinning, my greatest guide was gone. But it gave me a huge wake-up call. Life was short, and I wasn't going to waste it doing something I didn't love. Those events propelled me to really focus on my career. I viewed my future as a building, and I was at ground zero. I needed to find my cornerstone, and out of a tragedy came the most ironic career choice of all, comedy. So thanks to a chance conversation with a friend, a university friend, Alice Daunt, two rather amazing things happened. Her brother had just opened a bookshop called Daunt Books, you might have heard of, and they needed someone to do their illustrations for their new branding. I think Alice asked me because she knew I was cheap. So I went to the bookshop and I did some sketches, and amazingly they became the iconic branding for the shop. And still to this day I'll be walking on the tube and see my sketch on a bag, and I only charged £100. But even though illustration was a love of mine, it wasn't going to pay the bills. But the second thing Alice Daunt did, and I'm very grateful for her for this, but she introduced me to Peter Richardson, who ran the comic strip, which you may have seen, those films on Channel 4 and BBC 2. And they had an iconic band of those alternative comics, French and Saunders, Rick and Aid, and I was just a fan. But I found myself working there. It was absolutely amazing. I wish I knew that it came from my wit and charisma. In fact, it came from the fact I could type really fast. And that's all they needed, and it was my lucky break. And I stayed there for a couple of years. After a while, I wanted to come back to Edinburgh. So I came back here. It was a great place to come to. It was a bit of a pause to take stock of what I've been doing. And I went back to the School of Art. In the day, I was directing for Scottish television. At night, I was making pots. Bit weird. But it was a great place to come. It was a little odd, because I wasn't at the university, which I love, so I was on the outside looking in. But a really valuable time when I figured out what my next step was, and that was going to the BBC. So I'm going to cut forward to The Royal Family, which was one of the shows I was involved with at the beginning. I'm sure you've seen The Royal Family. You know its iconic look now, but when it first arrived, everyone thought it was just the raw footage from the set, so it hadn't been edited, and they just sort of sent us assemblies from the show. In fact, it was the finished show, and it cost us a fortune, so everybody thought that they would be incredibly embarrassed by this very rough show going out. And of course, it ended up being an incredible success. And I guess I mention that because it's such a strange world where the next hit will come from, and that did not come in an obvious package. The Office had another odd birth, where we'd already had a show that year that none of you will remember, called Office Gossip. And there was a conversation whether we could actually manage 2 shows about The Office in the same year. The Office looked a bit grey and a little dull, and no one famous was in it. So it nearly didn't get made, but it did actually go out that year. And with a quick-thinking BBC 2 controller, got a repeat and had this incredible meteoric rise. It was a huge privilege to work at the BBC. and I got to work with some extraordinary talent. I had to practice my totally unimpressed face when I'd meet some huge hero of mine, like John Sullivan, who wrote Only Fools and Horses, who was amazing, and Catherine Tate, who I saw that first run-through when she was practicing what became very iconic catchphrases, and Miranda Hart, who emerged as quite a shy thing at the beginning, and we put her in various shows for her to gain her confidence until she obviously did her sitcom Miranda, which has been hugely successful. As a commissioner, my job is to keep open and curious about what audiences are responding to. It's not my taste. I'm trying to think on behalf of everyone else, and I make calculated guesses about where a hit might come from. So I love it when we do get this right. It's not often, but we do get it right. And Moon Boy came out of that series, Little Crackers, which was Chris O'Dowd's short film, and it was just a little story about his Christmas. And together with Chris, we spotted we might be at the beginning of something. And out of it grew Moon Boy. And Moon Boy won the International Emmy for Best Sitcom 2 years ago and the Best British Comedy Award last year. And the next series is on March the 2nd, Sky One, always working. I never tire of multiple types of comedy. The biting satire of Chris Morris, Charlie Brooker, Armando Iannucci. They give us permission to puncture the uncomfortable, say the unsayable, right through to the modern day clowns, like Harry Hill or Brendan O'Carroll in Mrs. Brown's Boys. You'll have favourites on that list and ones you hate, but that's sort of the point. Comedy's like music. There's an endless combination of notes to give us discord, harmony, and when it connects, it quite simply makes us feel better. The satirist's job is to surprise the audience, to show them their world in a different light. This often involves saying the opposite to what they want to hear, and it can also be a force more threatening than any weapon, as the horrific events in Paris with Charlie Hebdo showed us just a month ago. Serious drama actors, they're mighty creatures who we all admire, but for me there's something quite special about the person who can make you laugh, especially when you're forming your taste, your identity. And I think that's why when a comedian dies, we feel it so deeply. We had a run of loss of laughter last year with the passing of Robin Williams, Joan Rivers, Rick Mayall, in quick succession. I really felt it. I wonder if you did too. They shake you, they shape you. You wear them like a badge, just as you might do your pop idols. They get you and you get them, and you share their best lines with people you want to connect with. And my experience at university here provided me with an environment where it was all about fresh thinking. We never questioned it. And then we graduate, we get all grown up, we join businesses and corporations that spend a fortune on trying to artificially inspire their employees. We had it here for free. Face-to-face engagement was the only way at uni, and now it's quite a precious thing as smartphones and emails take the place of direct exchange of ideas. So, before I finish, I wanted to share with you a rather transformative last 6 months that sort of culminated at this point. I figured out that I was working far too much, double the hours I used to, as those emails sadly don't stop when you leave the office. Technology doesn't quite replace the chances to generate fresh ideas. I think it's a bit like fast food. Our brains are just absorbing lots and lots of tiny facts that skim the surface of our minds. I think we're being undernourished, and I think it's a real worry. I started to think about how I'm spending my time and also about this time of my life. Life doesn't quite follow that you grow and grow in your capabilities. I wish it did. The irony is when we get older, we get more and more certain of our limitations. You peak. You're told that if you haven't done it by now, you never will. Well, I think that's rubbish. So with these ideas combined, I've come up with something I call my fifth day philosophy, also known as how to avoid a midlife crisis, or how to return to the university part of you. So I clocked up my hours. I figured out I was owed a day in my week, a day not to think about work, not to think about home, a time to immerse myself in a creative space. And I'm very grateful to my boss for letting me do this. And actually, the first person I got back in touch with was a former university pal, Lisa Gornick, who's become a filmmaker and an actress. We collaborated on a show which has just been out on the London Comedy Film Festival and Soho Theatre. I was then encouraged by another university pal, Jenny Frayne, to write and direct a short film, which goes out on Monday at the BFI. It's just 2 projects, but I think it's a start, and having been a comedy midwife, I finally feel it's time to be a creative mother. And here's to the next thing. I enjoy and appreciate my job all the more as a result. And I think we all carry those dreams, the stuff we used to do at university that we might have let slip. So here's my question for you. If you had a bit of time on your hands, what would you do? The creative you that you might have let pass you by. You don't have to run away to the circus to achieve your ambitions. I took on new projects without letting the day job slide. But you need to take them seriously. Life is short. So thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Edinburgh University. You continue to inspire me. Even 24 years on, you've given me great friends who I continue to work with. I wear you like a badge, as I do my comic heroes. This year, I'll be here for August, not to paint the Bedlam toilets, but to chair the Foster's Edinburgh Comedy Awards. So I return to where it all started. And none of this would have happened without those precious university years. Thank you for giving me the best start I could have hoped for. And keep laughing. Thank you very much.